We've got a couple of very exciting speakers lined up, and we're about to kick off the first session here. So this session is going to be a fireside chat. So we have no fireside, but a lot of chat. Two chairs lined up here for the two folks. They're going to talk about next generation travel with GenAI in a secure, scalable, and reliable way. So the first speaker is going to be Zoe Webster, Director of Authentic Innovation. And she's going to be chatting with Rajesh Naidu, Senior VP and Chief Architect at the Expedia Group. So please welcome Zoe and Rajesh for the first fireside chat.
Up to you. Thank you, Paul. Right, super excited to have this chat with you.
Thank you, Zoe.
Rajesh, great to meet you. And we've both been talking about our travels, so we'll be talking a bit more about travel shortly.
Sure.
But focusing on AI, and welcome to everyone in this session. You've been doing AI for some time in your company. That won't be a surprise to anyone. But can you tell us a bit more about what you've been doing more recently? How and when you got into generative AI in particular, as that's kind of the big trend at the moment?
Definitely. So we've been lucky at Expedia Group. We've been working on a few things over the last few years. First and foremost, we worked on our tech platform consolidation. We have 21 different brands that we had acquired over the years. We needed to bring this technology together, get onto a common platform. Mm-hmm. Secondly, we also worked on a data foundation. We had over 70 plus petabytes of data that we needed to bring over into a central data lake, which was going to be the foundation for some of the AI ML work that we're doing. And we've been doing AI ML for a few years now. Mm-hmm. So when GenAI started emerging, we had an advantage because of the maturity we had with AI ML that we could jump into GenAI pretty fast. And we were, I think, the first online travel agency which integrated ChatGPT into our application. This was about 4 or 5 months right after ChatGPT was released in February of 2023. And since then, we've been doing a lot of work in the GenAI space. To name a few things that we've done. First and foremost, we realized that there was an opportunity to create guest review summarization. So as most of you know, before you buy something or you like to read the reviews. In the past, you probably had to scroll through hundreds of reviews to figure out what was good, what was bad. With guest review summarization, we realized that there was a way to manifest the key things of what people liked about a property or a destination, what they didn't like, so travelers could make an informed decision. And what our data showed us was about 70% of the travelers wanted to look at a review before they booked something. Okay. So there was definitely value in that, and I think surfacing that to the travelers was important. The second thing with GenAI that we have right now as an alpha within our mobile app, we call it Romy. This is a GenAI travel assistant and a travel concierge, constantly refining and learning. And right now we're actually doing some AI-powered search within our app, which is built off of what we've done with Romy. The other one, which was an interesting thing that we realized with our travelers, was the ability to do what I would call destination comparison. Okay. So you pick if you don't know which destination you want to go to, you can look at the different themes, right? Whether you want to go to the beach, whether you're interested in nature, or you're somebody who wants to be in the city, and then look at what kind of destinations fit that, search across dates and things like that. So these are a few that we have rolled out in terms of GenAI for the travelers. And I think the last one we had was recently rolled out is within our Expedia app, if you go into the help center and you have a current reservation or an upcoming trip, you can start interacting with the GenAI to ask, like, can I change this reservation? Or can I cancel this? What are the rules and penalties, if anything, or is this free? So these are the things in the past. You would have to go and read a document and try to figure out and interpret it and then call someone. This is to try to make that self-service into the app. So these are a few examples I can share with you.
Some great examples and quite a variety as well. Do you feel, what feedback are you getting from travelers that they're responding really positively to this generative AI, the capabilities that are powered by the generative AI?
Yeah, so I think, by including this into a mode where it's self-service.
Yeah.
We are seeing that about 70% of the travelers who are interacting with our virtual agent with some of these capabilities are getting answers to the questions they want. And so that is then freeing up our resources to focus on other things. So I think it's a learning experience like everything else right now.
Absolutely.
So look at the data, look at what the opportunities are. Look to see if there's any friction in the experience, if there's a drop-off, how do you course correct and bring things back?
Brilliant. And do you think, the look and feel of it, is it quite similar? Will a traveller have noticed the difference in this technology in terms of how it looks and feels, or is it, it's very much in the back end, in the background?
We're trying to make the conscious decisions about the UI, the look and feel. So the AI-powered search, with the little AI icon now that everybody's using, it just shows that in the search bar, but it says it's AI search, so people know what this is. I think a lot of times, every company is going through this right now. I think not just in e-commerce, but all your day-to-day interactions with apps. You have to get this into the experience that people are used to. Because it's very hard if you try to branch them. Because early on with ChatGPT, you had to actually click on something to get to a separate tab of the app and things like that. So I think it's going to be something experimenting and learning. We do a lot of test and learn and experimentation.
Brilliant.
So I'm hoping this will give us the data to know how to refine the experience.
That's really helpful. And so we've talked a lot about how it looks to the traveller and the changes you've been instigating there. I'm interested in what's different or what's changing for your colleagues within Expedia. So you mentioned already that because this kind of capability is helping people get to the information they want, it's saving time elsewhere. So what kind of changes are you seeing or instigating within Expedia for your colleagues?
Right. I think for colleagues and co-workers at Expedia, the appetite is immense. Everybody wants to get to GenAI, right? But I think you have to be thoughtful. You have to understand what rules you need to put in place in terms of the engagement with LLMs and things like that. So a few things that we have done is early on, we tried to see with GitHub Copilot, what are some of the opportunities for developers and others to use Copilot, both from a code generation, from unit test case development, as well as everybody's favorite work, documentation. So we thought there was an opportunity where sometimes you don't have the best documentation. Can we use this for documentation? So we did a pilot early on. The results were positive. So we have enabled GitHub Copilot for all of our developers. I think on the average, what we've been able to do is be able to push code out faster now, down to like 3 days from like 7 days in the past or something like that. So there's been a big improvement in productivity. The second thing is we're also looking at Copilot Enterprise for other use cases within the company. Now, it's not just us building LLMs or trying to build LLMs or using, we use Slack for collaboration internally. And we did a pilot for about 4 weeks with Slack AI. And this was really for our IT support and incident management team. They use Slack heavily, and Slack was phenomenal for them because the results showed that in that pilot, we had about, I think, 165 minutes per person savings.
Wow.
And so there was definitely an appetite for that. So we've rolled out Slack AI in a limited capacity, and we're expanding that. The other one for colleagues who work in the call center and the help center at Expedia, the task that they were always left with after the call finished was to create the document summarization of the call. And if you've ever been in a call center, it's navigating between different windows, shift tab, this, that, and everything. And it puts a huge cognitive burden. So we did this automatic call summarization. And that has actually helped save so much time for the call center agent. They embraced it. It's been the best thing for them in terms of productivity gains. And it also has helped us because what it has done is people still do call the call center. So one of the benchmarks that we've been tracking is 90% of our travelers get to an agent within 30 seconds. That's well above the industry average. And that is because we have several minutes of saving. After a call is done, they can respond to the next call. And again, like everything else, right, there's got to be a human in the loop, validating to make sure this is right. And as the models have refined, we're finding good results from that.
Okay, brilliant. That's one of those use cases that benefits both the internal side of the business and people
and
calling in,
which
which is really helpful. it's obviously, AI comes with risks, and again, you've got lots of experience in this space, so you're well aware of that. And I think we're all seeing, governments and others thinking quite hard about regulation, how we can mitigate risks. Can you tell us how you're making sure that what you're doing with the various forms of AI that you're using, how you're doing that responsibly? What does that mean to you, and what are you doing to respond to that?
Certainly, great question. I think first and foremost, what we did was we have company values and principles.
Okay.
And we said that whatever we do with AI, responsible AI, we have to have some principles that align with the values of the company. So that was the first thing we did, was put forth a list of responsible AI principles. The second thing we created is an executive level responsible AI council who is looking into what are the investments that we need to make. How do we use AI responsibly for our travelers, for our employees, but we also support all our partners, right? So these are the supply partners that we interact with. And we have GenAI capabilities we're also offering, so the hotels and the airlines and the others who interact with us. So this executive council has some of that decisioning around like a steer co in a way, right?
Yeah.
The other thing we've done is we've created a task force or a responsible AI working group.
Okay.
So these are the people who are doing the hands-on work, working with the different teams at Expedia Group, understanding what's coming in, how do we use it, are the models like, with everything else, there are models you get from outside. There's open source models. You can buy a model. You can build your own model. So this team is responsible for getting into more of the nuts and bolts and the details of what are we doing with GenAI. The important things for us with this group is, are the models the right models that we're using?
Yeah.
Is the data that we're using, because we're focused on data and data quality and completeness, but what we've also learned is the data really needs to be representative of what use case you're solving for.
Absolutely.
Because complete data does not always mean representative data.
Absolutely.
So that was an important thing. The explainability of these models, if somebody asks us questions, and proving that there's no bias or other factors being introduced into. So that's the task of that group. So I think by putting these three functions together, principles, the council, and the group, that's how we manage our GenAI infrastructure.
And do they all work well together? I mean, often you find, an executive counts on a working group. Sometimes that works well. Sometimes they're at a distance.
Yeah, so
do you find that works well?
It works well because the team members are members of, in some cases, from the respective executive group.
Right.
So they are representatives of those teams in addition to other teams within the organization. So there's definitely active participation from both sides. And so far, we worked well. Like I said before, there's a lot of appetite and ask from people, right?
Yeah.
Every day there's something new being released and somebody wants to go try it out, and we have to just say, we've got to have guardrails in place because this is company information. It's a whole different thing if you want to do it on your own, but that's not at work.
Quite. No, that's a really good point. It sounds like you've got loads of experience, you've got loads of insight, you've got practical guidance, you've got policies and processes and guardrails in place. So it sounds like, you're doing great things, but there are always challenges along the way. Are there any kind of big challenges you've had to overcome on your journey? Are there any things you would have done differently if you had your time again? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I think, the technology came at us really fast last year. And if you look at it, even in the keynote earlier, travel seems to be one of the most talked about use cases for GenAI. Everybody is trying to crack the code on that to figure out how to integrate into their experiences, into their applications. So I think the first and foremost thing was for us was we wanted to, we made the right choice, I think, in terms of being LLM agnostic.
Right. Okay.
So what we said here was we'll have a framework, we'll have a proxy layer, we'll decide when we want to use somebody else's LLM, when we build our own LLM, especially when we are training something on our own data. So, for example, the guest review summarization I talked about earlier, or any of the property and amenity answers that people want. We are using our own in-house LLM trained on our own in-house data, because obviously we didn't want that to be out in the public domain, right? So that was one.
Yeah.
By being LLM agnostic, it also gives us the opportunity to see if there's something good out there that we can leverage. Let's evaluate it, and we can easily integrate it. The other decision we made early on, and I think is something we're hearing from a lot of companies, is leave the large models, the foundational models, to the big players.
Okay.
They have way deeper pockets. They have
Yeah.
way deeper resources to work on that. But look, keep an eye out always to see if there are new specialized niche players coming into the marketplace. Benchmark with what you have. I think you need to be open to that idea. Unlike some of the other technology choices in the past, when companies build something, they considered it so sacred and they kept it to
Yes.
themselves. I think in this you
Yes.
have to be able, because it's moving so fast.
Okay.
Even looking at the keynote today, some interesting things were shared. I think it's a constant battle to keep up with that. So I think that is one. The other one is, I think, securing the data, the regulations and the changing regulatory landscape. The EU is obviously ahead of some of the other regions around the globe. So understanding what that means, that goes back again to having some of that tech foundation
Yes.
and data principles and things like that, because you have to pivot fast.
Yeah.
And I think the important thing in this space is really around explainability and proving that you are actually adhering to the regulations and things like that. So I wouldn't say we have, I mean, like everything else, we try out these capabilities, we learn. I think the one thing which I wouldn't say a mistake, but a lesson we learned early on is cost.
Okay, yes.
You've got to consider
familiar.
cloud cost. I mean, early on, those free tokens
Yeah.
were great. The 350 free
Yeah.
tokens
Yeah.
will be great. You can run through those tokens pretty fast.
Yeah.
So fine-tuning your models down the road, managing your costs. I mean, we all run in the cloud for the most part. Some of you may still have data centers and things like that. The other thing is, if you are trying to run your own hardware and everything else, you're competing for GPUs, I will honestly say it's good luck, because the big players are way ahead in the line. They are getting most of the GPUs and everything else. So I think you have to make some conscious decisions on what you have to leverage from other players, but how do you bring that to your business and use that?
Oh, brilliant. That's really helpful. In my experience, cost is something that a lot of people are grappling with at the moment in various organisations. Kind of final question, looking at time. As you say, things are changing rapidly. We've learned a heck of a lot in the past couple of years, in particular in the space of AI, building on what was known previously. Looking forward now, what's exciting you most about AI and developments you expect to come forward?
Thank you. I think this is one where, again, we have to be responsible on how we deploy AI, how we design, how we lay this whole thing out, because I think it's a technology that is here to stay, to solve some good problems for the world.
Yeah.
The second thing is, when I look at ChatGPT O1 or Strawberry as it's known, I'm really excited to see the logical reasoning, the cognitive reasoning. And even in the demo that we saw this morning at the keynote, I think travel is something where you want to go deeper, you want to ask more questions, you wanted to use some cognitive reasoning and things like that.
Yeah.
And the current use cases, which are around solving complex math problems or things in genomics and medical sciences, I'm hoping lead to some great outcomes which would benefit society in general. I feel personally at Expedia Group, we believe that we've got to be responsible and also intentional about what we do with AI for our travelers.
Yes.
And something I've said before in other forums is, just because you could do it doesn't mean you should do it.
Absolutely.
And that is going to be on responsibility on each of us, on each of our companies, to really balance that. I mean, there's always going to be, like every technology, the good and the bad, but I'm hoping that the good can eventually outweigh the bad. But time will tell.
That's great. Well, thank you. And I think, I recognise a lot of that sentiment. So thank you very much for this conversation. Hopefully that's been helpful to the audience. I think what we've covered quite a lot in terms of, internal use cases as well as external use cases, and those that actually serve both, internal, the colleagues, and in this case, the travellers. You've talked quite a lot about that rigor and that importance of being very intentional and conscious about what you're doing, but at the same time being flexible to make sure you can pivot or you can change or take advantage of new developments that have come out. And so yeah, and you mentioned lots of different things to think about, balancing cost with capability, explainability, etc. So thank you very much. Rajesh is actually going to be around for the next 30 minutes or so if anyone's got any questions for him. So do come and find him if you want to do some follow up. But thank you very much for the conversation. I hope everyone found it very useful.
Sure. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, everyone.